Alright YouTube, thank you for listening today. I have some tips here that I think you're going to find very helpful on shopping on eBay for electronic components. And when I say electronic components, I mean old school parts that aren't current production. First off, eBay's goal is to make as much money as they possibly can, and they don't really care how they go about doing it. But there are some ways to work around that to offset cost of shipping. And part of the problem, as I see it with eBay, is that there's absolutely no competition anymore. If you go through and you start singling out items and look at like 5 sellers that are selling an item that you want to buy, you're going to find that those prices are going to be within 99 cents of each other. So, by the time you do the math on the whole thing, it wasn't economically viable to put that much research into 5 different sellers. So the first and the most important thing is how to weed out China. How to take China out of the equation, because that's the biggest nuisance. And there's some real easy things you can punch into the search bar in order to do that. The first one is going to be NOS, New Old Stock. You punch that into a search bar, that just throws China right out of the equation, and they can't compete with that terminology. The second thing too is use the term lot, L-O-T, meaning a lot of them. A lot of switches, a lot of relays, a lot of that. That will oftentimes help you out and get you a pretty super deal. You might have to pay double or triple what you were looking to spend for the item, but when the box arrives, you're going to have so much stuff in it, you can just use everything else for a rainy day project. That works extremely well. Reverting back to the statement I made about there's no competition. If there's no competition between sellers, that's when the buyer absolutely loses. And just kind of as an analogy, looking back on the 60s and 70s when everybody was competing for audio and everybody in the world was building speakers and amplifiers, the consumer really made out like a bandit at that time, because competition breeds lowest prices. It kind of breeds best quality merchandise. So it's really no different on eBay today as to why things don't work so well on there. I don't rehearse my videos, so I'm just kind of going by what comes off the top of my head, so I hope I don't miss anything. Another thing that's very helpful too, and that is know your product, know your manufacturers. Know if you're looking for switches, who made the best switches. Just don't punch in double pole, double throw switches, because China's just going to invade your screen. Punch in key things like C&K, Leviton, things like that. China can't compete with that. That will rule them out. If you're looking for standoffs, punch in Keystone. If you're looking for binding post, punch in Panoma or H.H. Smith. If you want wire, you type in Alpha. If you want ring terminals, you type in Thomas and Betts. That's how you kind of weed the junk out of the equation. You really got to know your manufacturers. So you got to kind of do your homework. Know what you want to buy. If you don't know what you want to buy, that just kind of opens you up for buying a real piece of junk. Now, something that's very helpful, and the best analogy I can think of is this. If you wanted to buy a CB radio, the worst place in the world would be to go to a guy that only sells CB radios, because you're not going to get a good price. And the same applies with eBay. If you want your best price, don't buy electronics from people that are selling only electronics. I mean, I can't stress that enough. Go to your mom and pops. That's going to be your best deal. And this kind of ties in with that. If you come across something on eBay, and I had it happen just this morning, I saw a roll of magnet wire pop up that was an absolutely unbelievable deal. I couldn't push the buy it now button fast enough. After I pushed the buy it now button, I instantly went to that seller's profile and started scrolling down through all the things he was selling. That's your opportunity right there. And generally you're going to find that no, that person is not selling a boatload of electronics, but they do have 2 or 3 items that are probably priced so good you really can't resist them. Generally you're going to find they're selling jewelry, clothes, kids' puzzles, toys, knickknacks, dishes, etc. Those are your mom and pops. That's where I like to put all my money. which isn't much, but that's where I like to put it. Back to what I said earlier about lots. That kind of applies, and I've used that a lot lately with electromechanical things, switches. I've gotten some unbelievable deals on some super quality switches by simply punching in a lot of switches. And when you do that, that doesn't bring up somebody that's selling only electronics and switches. That brings up the mom and pops who just happened to hit the gold mine at a flea market, estate auction, or something like that. And you can really make out quite well. Now, kind of funny note, I've been looking for a new DVM. And I thought, well, just for the heck of it, I'm going to punch in a lot of DVMs. I didn't really think it would work. You would be amazed how many people out there are selling 15 DVMs in one clip. And yeah, you might pay double, triple what you were looking to spend. But you know what? You're going to have 15 DVMs. If 4 or 5 of them are broke, you just take the parts from one, rob Peter to pay Paul, and fix up what DVMs you can fix up. And man, you're in a honey hole there. It appears to work with a lot of things that I didn't think it would. Now, there's one problem on eBay that I have absolutely not found a way around. And I'll tell you what, it's the one that costs the most money to me. And that is, as somebody on fixed income, I go through eBay and I'll save up stuff on there for months at a time. And at some point in time, after I hit the watch button, it sends me an offer. Well, that's great. But 9 chances out of 10, I don't have the money to buy it just then and there. So the offer expires after 48 hours. And then when you go back to buy it, like what happened today, I paid a lot more money for it than I could have, because some of those items don't have best offer on, but they send offers. So I couldn't resubmit offers back to them to try to get it for the price that I missed. I have found no way around that, but it's a pretty hard hit. So kind of summing it up, China is very, very crafty, and the whole system is very crafty. And this doesn't apply to pricing, but this applies to product. I see it quite often, where China will try to infringe on anything they can to make money. And that doesn't really disclude trying to reuse somebody's trademark. And like I said, trademarks are one of the things, or trade names or manufacturers or what have you, are one way to weed China out of the equation. But China will try to manipulate that sometimes, like on certain products, like 3M. I mean, 3M's a fantastic company, man. I can't say enough about them. But if you go on there to buy adhesives or tapes or something like that, you want the best there is, so of course you enter in 3M. Well, sometimes those things can be like sold by the foot or something. So what China will do is they will tack a big old 3M up there, and that doesn't mean it was made by 3M. That means you're going to get 3 meters of it. Another thing too, and I see this all the time, is China will try to reproduce something that was very, very old, that's not made anymore, a style of electronics or something like that. Like, for instance, round meters. Round meters are something that we just don't see anymore. But China will throw round meters on there to try to attract your attention. And of course, I mean, by looking at the meters, I mean, you know that they were made in China. They try to manipulate the system any way they can. As far as buying fake stuff on eBay, I cannot stress this enough. I see this so many places on YouTube that people just constantly buy fake parts, and I just really got to scratch my head. It doesn't really apply to what this video was supposed to be about, but I think it's really important. You got to understand this. All those old parts that China is reproducing or faking or whatever you want to call it are all parts that are discontinued. They haven't been manufactured in 40, 50 years. So don't think that you actually found yourself a warehouse sitting in Kalamazoo that's got thousands of these things that's selling them. It just doesn't work that way. These parts are gone. The best thing you can do, I mean, for example, let's say you want an STK module for a audio amp, because I see a lot of this. I see people taking Dremels, cutting these open, spending countless hours showing you that they're fake. Let's just say that you want one of them. Well, the best way to get one of them is not to buy it on eBay. Go and buy yourself another unit that you know hasn't been touched. And that kind of reverts back to you gotta know your seller and you gotta do your homework. Look up the information the seller had on the unit. Sometimes you can just come straight out and ask them, hey, how long have you had this unit? Has it ever been repaired, etc., etc.? And that will help you determine, well, is there a good working STK module in this audio amp? And then you just pay the price, buy it, and take the STKs out, fix your amp, and then you got spare parts. Of course, it really wasn't cost viable, but you know, that's really the only way to do it. Also, too, please don't buy audio transistors or really anything audio on eBay because it's all fake. If you need to fix an audio amp or something like that, don't try to buy a 45-year-old Sanken audio transistor, audio output transistor on eBay. Go and get yourself a good substitution book and find a good viable substitution for it. You gotta order current production parts, folks. Current production. If you order current production, you're gonna get a real part. You know, as simple as that. China knows what's not available, so of course they key in on that because they're gonna reproduce it, because that's where the money's at. And this kind of really applies to TO3 transistors and actually a lot of other items too, especially semiconductors. Look at the background of the picture. Is it a gleaming generic picture of the transistor, or is it a picture of this transistor that kind of looks like that, sitting on someone's kitchen table? That's kind of a no-brainer there. You know, that will save your butt every time. Don't think that just because these TO3 transistors aren't coming from China that they're real. Because there's a lot of stuff coming out of New Jersey, California, and probably a couple other places I can't think of right now, and ain't none of those TO3 transistors real. So always look at your backdrop. If you got some kind of fancy, it's got the company's logo on it with their business card, I mean, that's never really a good sign either. Always look for a picture of someone's house. This kind of applies to the picture test too. Just remember, all that glitters is not gold. If it's a gleaming image of something, chances are you're going to be pretty unhappy when you get it. Enough said, but anyway, I hope these tips help you. So you take care and have a great day.